and welcome back to another live stream and Ask Me Anything session all over the internet today. I am facilitating this live for those who registered and the folks who are registered for this live event and logged into my StreamYard account. Those folks, you have first access to me. Feel free to begin asking any question you want during our time together, and I will prioritize your questions as we go. I am also streaming live on the internet via YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter as well. And if anybody is following me on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, you can post your questions in the comments on any of those live streams. They will show up for me here as well, and I will be able to answer them also. And I am also simulcasting this out on Clubhouse. And I want to say hello to Michelle, who is viewing live on Clubhouse. Michelle, if you at any point have a question, you'd like to ask me anything, feel free to raise your hand there on Clubhouse, and I can bring you in audio only. Happy to do that. And then one other thing that I will just share with you who are watching the live stream. No matter how you're watching this live, you can go to mindsetanswerman.com/join. I'm going to put that link right here, mindsetanswerman.com/join. And I just entered that into the chat. So those of you who are watching live, all over the place, that link should have just been posted to Facebook, YouTube, and also for those of you who are watching the webinar version of this. So if you would like to come on screen, video and audio, and engage with me live, you can do that by going to mindsetanswerman.com/join. You can also join via audio only, meaning that you don't have to turn your camera on. You can just click mindsetanswerman.com/join. You're going to tell it to give access to your camera and your microphone, but when you do that, you can turn your video off. You don't have to turn your video on. You can just be audio only. And of course, anybody who's listening in via on Clubhouse can do audio only. Just raise your hand on Clubhouse. So there we go. Now, I love that John showed up just so that he could ask this question. This is, by the way, Ask Me Anything. And again, one more time, I'm going to ask you guys to post your questions in the chat or join me live. Either way, I would love to answer your questions. So John sent this question earlier, and he says, Cliff, how do you view what spiritual warfare is? And I definitely do not think about spiritual warfare these days. I can tell you what I used to think about spiritual warfare. I used to think about spiritual warfare as being there are angels in the spirit realm who are protecting me, and there are demons who are very much influenced by Satan's guidance in seeking to destroy, and that behind this physical world, there are dark forces at hand and all of this spiritual warfare and things of that nature. And I once believed in all of those things. And when I believed in all of those things, I certainly saw evidence to my belief. And what I will say is, for me, I believe in the law of attraction. So whatever we can conceive with our mind, whatever we choose to believe, and what we create in our imagination, the universe is more than happy to and delighted to bring about our experience of that into the physical world. And so I definitely experienced spiritual warfare throughout my life. Over time, though, and specifically over the last 3.5 years, I've changed a lot about what I believe. In fact, I broke up with a lot of my conditioned beliefs. And so today I definitely see that there are things that one might consider to be evil, and then there are things that are good. And I definitely don't see them the way that I used to. I also kind of feel that there is light and darkness in all of us. I can see how you could describe a lot of the same things that I attributed to dark spiritual forces and light spiritual forces, to the psychological aspects of our psyche. There's a lot that goes into it, but to be frank, I just today do not think a lot about spiritual warfare. I have not been attacked by Satan since I gave up thinking about being attacked by Satan. It's just not happened to me. And there's an old version of Cliff that would say, oh, he's really got Cliff won over. That's exactly where Satan wants people. They want them to not experience his attacks. And so therefore he's truly been deceived. So Satan's going to leave Cliff alone because he's got him so far away from the truth that Cliff is obviously under satanic attack and not aware of it, because Satan doesn't want to reveal the fact that he's got him right where he wants him. That's an old version of Cliff Ravenscraft. Thinking about spiritual warfare from that perspective would define what I'm experiencing today in that way. I experience nothing but peace, love, and joy in my union with God today. Now, with that being said, I see that, John, you're here, and I see that you're in on audio. Let me just check. Are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah. So that's my answer to your question. Do you have any follow-up questions to it?
Yeah. So I really didn't want to, probably that's where you would go. So what about more from, do you think there are, I don't want to use the word evil, but let's just say under the context of where me and you come from, light and dark forces where they are battling each other? Did I lose you?
No, I'm still hearing you. So let's just, for anybody that's listening in live, let's just clarify what you mean by where you and I both come from. Can you describe that, what you mean by that?
Well, by just what you just said, our church background, believing that Satan's out to supposedly bring dominion, control us, and keep us from church, from God, however you want to clarify that. But I am looking at it much more from the law of attraction, which you spoke about, and something I am examining. I'm not saying, I'm just examining and looking at other religions as a whole, and just wanted your input from Hinduism to other sides, the yin and the yang, and some of that. There are definitely some plays in that, and how they really encompass and bring us into one, or keep us from being one with God. And I may not be communicating that properly, but that's kind of on the fly, the best I can do.
Yeah, so the one thing I will tell you is that I really love the commentaries that Paramahansa Yogananda did on the teachings of Jesus. It's called The Second Coming of Christ. Let's see here. Actually, it's called the Second Coming of Christ, a revelation. What is it called now? There are three different levels of it. It is The Second Coming of Christ, The Resurrection of Christ Within You, a revelatory commentary on the original teachings of Jesus. That's the full title, by the way, of his 2-volume series. So it's The Second Coming of Christ, The Resurrection of Christ Within You, a revelatory commentary on the original teachings of Jesus. Now, Yogananda, in his commentary, claims that Jesus had revealed to him in meditation the actual meaning behind the teachings that are attributed to him in the Bible. And he also, Yogananda states, that Satan actually has appeared to him as well. But it is a manifestation of the personification, a manifestation of the idea of what Satan is. And in his Hindu philosophy, what he taught was that Satan is actually a force that was created by God, an energy created by God, a force that would go out into the physical world and cause the souls that have incarnated into human form to forget that they are one with God. So that what would happen was, once Satan's force is deceiving the incarnated souls in human form to believe that they are only human, that they are their body, that they should identify with their flesh, and that this world is the only world, and that You should fear death. You should have all of these things. And so the idea is that when this drama was created, and this is what Yogananda states in his teachings and his philosophy. I'm not claiming, by the way, that all of this is true. I'm answering from a Hindu philosophy since you brought that in. That what Yogananda and his philosophy teaches is that God created the idea of having the ability to give and receive love and to live out relationship with others. So God, being all that is, had this idea say, it'd be great to have this experience. I wonder what it would be like. And in that instant, everything was instantly created. He had the thought, and everything that's ever existed has been an instantaneous thought in the mind of God. Therefore, in that instantaneous thought, which is always happening in the instant immediate now because God is outside of time, but you and I perceive time, therefore we're sitting here in these experiences called the human condition. And the human condition is that we were once divine spiritual beings, but when we came into the earth, we have come under the delusional influence of a force, you might call it Satan, and that force causes us to ignore the fact that we are sons of God, which is a reference to Psalms 82:6, which says, "You are all gods, you are all sons of the Most High." Does that answer your question, John?
Yeah, for now. Yeah.
Excellent. Is there any additional question off of that you have?
No, I'm still processing. For me, I am kind of in our own journey trying to dig in and get some answers for myself without any preconceived ideas. That's why I answered so vaguely, because I don't want preconceived ideas. I just am I'm on my own journey, and I'm trying to sort out some of what I do believe and put some facts and data behind it, if that makes sense, and without me constructing something.
Yeah, absolutely. And I encourage you to continue to seek for those answers and find them for yourself. I can tell you right now, I am here not to try to convince you to think anything other than the Bible, because I know that that's the background that you come from. And if that community continues to serve you well, and if your belief in the Bible and how it describes the warfare between light and dark, and the fact that Jesus is your protection, if that allows you to experience a life of anxiety-free connection with God, I would encourage you to go all in on that as your path. It's just that I was not served fully by my experience there myself, and so therefore I was able to find a different way of thinking and feeling about my relationship and connection with God, and it was opened up through other sources. But just because it was opened up by other means and other sources for me, and the fact that I'm out here answering questions about my own experience, I'm not here trying to convince you or others. And I know that you know that because you've heard me talk about this before, but I just wanted to state that for the record.
Yeah, well, thanks.
Awesome. Well, I will take you back off the hot seat here. If you have another question, feel free to let me know in the chat. I'll leave you on audio here as long as you want to stay in the studio, but just removing the audio from the stream. If anybody else has any other questions, feel free to ask. I'm not here to, quote unquote, monologue on just topics. I don't have any teaching here prepared in advance for this live stream. I was hoping that if anybody wanted to ask me anything, this doesn't have, we just started off way in the deep end on the spiritual side, but we can talk about your personal dreams and the things you want to create in this world. If you've got a business idea that you want to talk about, we can talk about your personal life, your professional life, and we can talk about your spiritual life. You could ask me anything whatsoever. I'm delighted to have the opportunity to serve you. I'm going to be here for the next 1 hour and 46 minutes at least. And if things really start picking up momentum, I'll stay longer. But for at least the next 1 hour, 45 minutes, and 52 seconds, I am going to be right here. So if you have a question, type it into the chat room. Matter of fact, let me just go ahead and put this back up on the screen here. So actually, I'll just put it right there. Post your question in the comments section if you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube. And if you're watching me on Twitter right now, I encourage you to choose one of the other platforms so I can see your questions if you chat at me. If you're on Clubhouse, feel free to raise your hand. And if not, I will just sit here. And of course, just like John did just a moment ago, you can go to mindsetanswerman.com/join. Again, and I'm going to type this into the chat again. If you go to mindsetanswerman.com/join, you can join me live right here, either via audio only or video as well. So, with that being said, I am going to sit here and play some meditation music in the background and wait for the next question to come in. That's not my meditation music. So let me turn that off and fix my thing and go here. By the way, I've done a number of these live streams over the years, and it typically starts out really slow for the first 5, 10, 15, sometimes even 25 minutes. It's incredibly slow. But once people start asking questions, then other people have questions, and then questions come off of those questions. And sometimes somebody completely shifts the conversation in another way. But before long, I'm fully anticipating that there will definitely be some momentum going here. And I see my friend John Lightfoot from the UK has joined me once again. Let me pull that audio down. John, how are you today? You're there.
I'm very well indeed, sir. You?
I have never been better. It gets better every minute of the day. It is so delightful to see you once again.
Thank you very much. I'm just trying to. I get a little bit here. I'm just trying to turn off and make sure I don't turn off the wrong one. Just a second.
No worries. I'll tell you what.
Okay. I think I'm back. I'm okay now. I think.
Oh, you're
My
okay.
apologies. Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No problem. What's on your mind today?
So, sort of following on from the last Ask Me Any Questions, where we developed a little bit of a conversation. If you have, I am very blessed and living a fantastic life, but think that there is something else out there for me to do. And I've listened to the podcast you suggested I listen to regarding the right path. I think that for me, you mentioned this. What does it have? The ideas. Does the path have heart in it? I think was what was quoted in the podcast. And so my issue really is finding that path. I'm very happy with what I'm doing. I just probably feel like I should be doing more. And there is heart in what I'm doing. But I think the thing that struck me was you mentioned, do you want to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and spring out of bed and get straight to it? And the answer to that has to be said no. So, there's obviously just that sort of slight amount of passion missing. And so I wondered if you had any advice that you thought you could give regarding how to find the path.
How to find the path?
Well, not the path. I realize from that that we're all on a path. It doesn't matter what path we're on. It's how to find the thing that's going to give you that sizzle.
Yeah, I'm thinking back to that episode. By the way, he's referring to a podcast episode of the Cliff Ravenscraft Show titled "Does Your Path Have a Heart?" And just so folks have a little bit of a background, I was asked the question of, or John had mentioned that, in this stage in his life, he's looking, what is the next right thing to focus on? And I encouraged him not to, I said I would recommend not looking for the right thing to focus on, but looking for the thing that would bring your heart, make you feel alive, that makes you feel connected. Basically not choosing the right thing, but choosing something that you desire to do. That's more in alignment with what I feel is worthy of pursuit. My question is, John, you said that you like what you're doing now, you're enjoying it, but there's a part of you that feels you ought to be doing more. My question for you is, what would you have to believe to feel like you should be doing more?
What would I have to believe to feel like I should be doing more? I don't quite because I feel I should be doing more, but I'm not sure what you mean by what would I have to believe. Sorry, I'm not quite on that wavelength. Excuse me.
Okay. So if I were to think about times when I felt like I should be doing more, and I've certainly had those experiences, what I had to believe for that to be true, to have that feeling, because that's all we're talking about. We're speaking about there's a feeling in emotion, there's a feeling in thought, and in a way a belief, because it's a feeling of certainty that I should be doing more. So there's a belief with great emotion that says I should be doing more. So what would I have to believe to feel that way? And so I'd have to believe that what I'm doing now is not enough. I would have to believe, for me, I would have to believe that I'm somehow limited on the amount of time that I have, and it's running out. And so that might cause a little bit of a deeper emotion. Another belief is that I only get one chance at life to get this right, and I'd hate to get and stand in front of some whatever council that says, did you waste your life? So I might have to believe that. And I might have to therefore believe that there is somebody out there who has ideas about what I should or shouldn't be doing in this life. So do you see where I'm getting from? Is when I had that feeling, that constant achiever mindset that says there's got to be something more. I'm not doing enough. I feel like I should be doing more. I used to have that. And what that feeling for me, and I'm not suggesting this for you, but for me, it was robbing me of experiencing every present moment as pure bliss, peace, and joy and contentment. And I seemed to have a greater desire to experience peace, love, and joy in the present moment more than feeling like I have to go do something else or there's something more I should do. And so what I did is I'm like, okay, why do I feel like this? Why do I always feel compelled to reach more people, create more things, to go do this? And then I went through and I uncovered a lot of those beliefs that I just came up with off the top of my head, but I also had a lot of other beliefs. Well, this is the society. Society says that you are credible when you do these kind of things, and there are people who need you, and if you don't show up, they're not going to get what they need, and all of these other things. And so for me, it was helpful to uncover, why do I feel the need to do something more?
Okay.
Did any of those beliefs, by the way, resonate with you?
Yeah, quite a few actually. Yeah, quite a few. I didn't count them, but probably 70% of them as a gut feel. From that, then what I take is that probably I should just contemplate, and you're absolutely right in terms of being grateful and being present in the moment. I guess the question to answer is, as you're saying, like I agree, is why do I want to do something else? Why?
Yeah, and there's no right or wrong answer to that. It would be nice to have that. If you have that and you come to a clear feeling for yourself that this is something from within, internally I desire, there's something more I desire. Which, by the way, I'm there's a part of me that thinks that if it was truly you, that like the essence of your core being of who you are, that felt like you should do something more, my suspicion is that you would have a vision of what that is already. Whereas if you don't have a vision what it is, but you feel some uneasiness about the fact that you're not doing that something more, it might mean that the source of those feelings that you should do more are coming from things that you've heard and been told or picked up throughout life about other people's expectations of what makes a good life.
Yeah. And I guess to a degree there is sort of muscle memory in terms of having been in a sort of, in a career that absorbed me, and then sort of coming off that, and then sort of just being sort of suspended a little bit, and not being used to just floating around rather than driving to something.
Yeah. And I'm just throwing this out there. Like, for example, if I were in the latter season of life, what if the next thing I feel called to do that gets me excited is to wake up in the morning, have myself some really awesome quiet time where I think and reflect about how blessed I am to live another day on this planet. And I'm going to look for opportunities to make people smile today. That, like, really my objective is, before I go to bed tonight, I'd love to make someone smile. Whether that's me walking down the street and waving to somebody and then seeing the smile, boom, mission accomplished. Whether that's pulling out some stationery and writing a handwritten letter that's going to be mailed off to somebody, knowing that once that letter is received, they're going to open it up and put that smile on their face. Maybe that's what I did today. I planted that seed of a smile somewhere. What if my next thing that I wanted to do was just to plant seeds that cause people to smile on a daily basis? What if that was what if that's the path that has a heart for me?
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
And so there's an infinite number of those that you could choose.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And in all those, what you're saying is completely correct, and I think you do need to sort of just meditate or contemplate on it. But in terms of doing that, when you were saying that, write a letter, wave to someone to get a smile, my immediate response in my mind immediately came back, but I want to do that for thousands of people. It's a bit of exaggeration. I want to do it for more than one person at the go.
So you want to say that again. You want to do it for more than one person.
Yeah. So what I'm saying is that when you were saying that, my immediate mind immediately came in with, yeah, that's good, but actually, rather than one, I'd like to do it for hundreds. I'd like to make hundreds of people smile.
Wonderful. So I'd love to ask you, what would you have to believe to make you want to do that for hundreds of people and see that as, and my next question, not judging, you may have very great reasons for this, but why would making hundreds of people smile on a daily basis be somehow more joy-filled for you as a path than making one person smile a day?
Just because it's a multiple of that joy, I guess.
It's a what?
A multiple of that joy.
So if you make one person
happy, yeah.
Excellent. So here's an interesting thought experiment. I know you've heard me talk about the map of consciousness the other day with Dr. David R. Hawkins. And what he talks about is the fact that if we were to raise our own level of consciousness, meaning that we spent more time developing our own peace, love, joy, exuberance, that in and of itself can impact hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people. So in essence, I'm sure you've heard throughout your life, attitudes are contagious, yes?
Sorry, broke up then, Cliff, sorry.
Have you ever heard attitudes are contagious?
Yes.
All right. Have you ever experienced a time where you are in a room and everything's kind of lighthearted and fun, and somebody who is having an incredibly terrible day, they're in an incredibly bad mood, they walk into the room and you sense and feel the shift of the room change, the energy of the room change? Now, granted, by the way, for those that are listening to audio, he's nodding his head. But here's the thing I want to say is, have you ever experienced that and they didn't even say a word? It's not like they came in and you heard them go like that. It's just still the fact that they walked in the room and they are they carried an energy in with them. You didn't see their face. You just felt the room shift in its energy. Have you felt that?
Yes, I have.
All right. We all are vibrational beings, and we are all putting off and radiating a vibrational essence or emotional frequency. And the higher the level of our consciousness, the higher our vibrational state, the more impact we have. And so it is possible for somebody who is having a negative emotional state to impact people locally around them and all this other stuff. And people will get attracted to that, and they'll all get together, and we say that misery loves company, right? And so you'll find these little pockets of negativity that are all surrounding one another. However, have you ever been in a room where it seems like everybody's on edge and stuff like that, but then somebody who is always positive, upbeat, always has a positive thing to say, a smile on their face, and it's just like a ray of sunshine comes into that space? And all of a sudden, those people that were cranky, all of a sudden got a little smile. They might have even chuckled, and it just completely shifted their focus on how terrible they thought life was before. And now all of a sudden, they're maybe starting to think a little bit more positively. And that's the impact of somebody with a higher vibration. The interesting thing is that we have the ability, through our understanding and belief in the fact that we are vibrational beings in a vibrational universe, that we could raise our level of consciousness to loving kindness and compassion and joy and peace, and just be so filled with that. And in a time of meditation, what if I told you you had the ability at any time you wanted to, you could sit in meditation and imagine a time when you felt love and felt compassion, and just start sensing that energy. And then you could imagine this as becoming a ball of white light, but it's like an orb of energy. And this energy is love and joy and peace. And then if you could, this is all in meditation with your eyes closed, you imagine that orb of white, loving, glowing energy in your hand. But then, as you do this, imagine yourself floating in space. And in space, you see the entire Earth in front of you. So you see the whole globe of the Earth in front of you. And you take this energy and you will that energy to go out from your hand and to encompass the entire globe and surround and bathe the entire population of the Earth in loving energy. We have that ability on a daily basis.
Yeah, that's a phenomenal thought. Thank you.
So by the way, that is one of an infinite number of paths that you could do.
Yes. There is no right choice.
There is no right choice. But the thing is that if you have a true desire to reach hundreds of people, then you just make it you say, hey, you know what? I'm going to attempt to build myself up to reaching hundreds of people every day and making them smile. You could do what I'm doing. Let me schedule a live stream at 3:30 p.m. Eastern time, and let me have people on my mailing list. I'm going to email 4,000 people and ask them if they want to come. And I'm going to publish this and schedule it on all the social media channels. And I'm going to simulcast it on all of the different streaming platforms. And it doesn't matter to me if 4 people show up, 15 people show up, 35 people show up. I'm simply going to show up, and whoever shows up, I'm going to attempt to be of support and encouragement, make them smile, whatever. And maybe, just maybe, if I continue to do that and I become more consistent at it, word might get out and people might start showing up. So, for example, this is the 3rd live stream that I've done in a row that you've been participating in just as little as 3 days. And so, while I may not have hundreds here, John, I'm delighted to have you.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
All right. So, is that valuable for you?
Very valuable. Thank you very much, Cliff. Thank you.
You're welcome. And by the way, just real quickly, I'm going to go to thecliffravenscraftshow.com, and I'm going to go to search and do path and heart. And if I do that, the reason why is because on Clubhouse, Michelle says, would you please share the name of that podcast episode John just referenced? So I'm going to find that here, and it's actually episode number 688 of the Cliff Ravenscraft Show. So if you go to thecliffravenscraftshow.com, and then you'll want to find episode 688, Does the Path You Are On Have a Heart? Michelle, thank you for that question. John, is there another question, or you want to tap out for a little bit?
I'll tap out for a little bit and let someone else have a go. Thank you very much, Cliff.
All right, no worries. And anytime you want to come back on, all you need to do is post something in the chat, and I'll bring you back up. All right, real quickly here, let me just add this and tell you that if you want, you can post your questions in the comment section if you are viewing this on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube. If you're watching this on Twitter, you want to find me on one of the other platforms, facebook.com/CliffRavenscraft, linkedin.in/CliffRavenscraft, or youtube.com/CliffRavenscraft. You can then post any question you want, ask me anything right here, right now. I'm going to be live for the next 1 hour, 24 minutes, and 27 seconds at least. And then over here on Clubhouse, Michelle says thank you. And I just want to say welcome to Michelle. And also we've got Dr. Cynthia Simmons is here. We've got Dion or Diane. Anyway, we've got her here. And then Luann is back. Welcome back, Luann. If anybody has any question whatsoever, feel free to ask it in the comments on any of these platforms. If you're on Clubhouse, you can raise your hand. Or if you would like to join me live, mindsetanswerman.com/join. You can come up on video or even audio only if you desire by going to mindsetanswerman.com/join. I'm going to take a drink of water. I'm not here to impress anyone, so I'm only here to be of support and encouragement to anybody who wants to ask questions. Feel free to ask away. I'm going to wait until the next question comes in. Alrighty, we have another question that has come in, and this one comes from Joe McGarry, who posted on Facebook. And Joe says, Cliff, where are you at on your health journey? What are you looking forward to when it comes to your health? So where am I on my health journey? My health journey is, as far as I'm concerned, I'm completely fine and satisfied with where I am today. Many of you know that I went on a pretty serious shift in my fitness and health journey back in November 2014. I made a commitment to working out 6 days a week, every week for the rest of my life. I did that for over 5 years, lost over 100 pounds of body fat, put on about 20 to 30 pounds of pure muscle mass. And I, quite frankly, got very attached to that identity and very much allowed that success to be a reason for a lot of happiness in my life. I also associated a lot of credibility to my ability to be of influence to others, and lots of other things in my mind were attached to that success. I didn't recognize just how important it was at the time, but it had become very much an ego-driven pursuit for me. Now, what happened was, and by the way, this is before I even understood the difference between my ego self and my higher self. But what I will say is that during the pandemic, my routine of 5.5 years had completely shifted. they shut down the gym. And I was spending somewhere between 1 to 3 hours a day at the gym 7 days a week. And they literally said, Cliff, you cannot come back here. We're shutting the doors down. And that happened for, as you guys know, a very long period of time. Now, granted, I have a gym in my home. I have thousands of dollars worth of equipment and all this other stuff. But frankly, my habits and my routines were not working out at home. And as a result of that, I got out of the routine. I got out of the habit. And not to mention the fact that during that period of time, what I did with a lot of that time was watch 1 to 3 hours of news media coverage. Now, I don't know if you guys remember the tone of the news media coverage during the first few weeks and months of the lockdown, but it was pretty much, as if it's changed. It was pretty much fear-based. We're all going to die, and this is all this other stuff. And there's just so much of that. And quite frankly, I got caught up in it. I got caught up in how is this going to impact my business? Who am I if I don't work out every day? And there's so many things to be afraid of. And, am I going to be able to put food on the table for my family because it seems like the shelves are bare? And this guy right here, Cliff Ravenscraft, got into a very low level of consciousness, a very deep, low level of consciousness. I had a lot of fear, a lot of anxiety, a lot of worry during that period of time. But what I will say is that it triggered something inside of me that says, wait a second, there's got to be more than all of this stuff that I'm focused on. And that's when I very much was drawn to some of these other more spiritual things, and I began to shift my focus over there. Once I found a new passion for a deeper study of philosophy and other people's spiritual traditions and their understandings and experiences of God at a much deeper level, and for the first time in 47 years of my life, the first time I would allow myself to even think about reading anyone else's experience outside of the Bible's perspective, I was just fascinated. And I began to take where I used to spend 1 to 3 hours a day working out at the gym, I began reading and studying somewhere between 3 to 5 hours a day. So much so that I have nearly 2,000 pages of handwritten notes in my journal in front of me. And, this is what I want to do. This is way more important than all this other stuff. Now, I will say that eventually I got back to working out again and all of this other stuff, but quite frankly, not at the levels. I've never returned yet to the levels I was prior to the pandemic. Unfortunately, though, once food was plentifully available once again, my eating habits kind of returned to pre-pandemic levels. And as a result of that, this guy right here had seen a significant increase on the scale. So where am I today on my fitness journey? I think today I'm just under 240 pounds. It's not where I want to be. It's not necessarily a healthy weight. And you know what? I'm still fine with where I am. I have no guilt. I have no shame associated to it. I no longer feel like I'm less credible because of where I am in my physical weight at all. And I know how to drop it. And, if it becomes a focus for me again, I will, and I'll do it with excellence. But right now, it's just not where my focus is. So that's where I am at in my health journey. Now, with that being said, I'm not experiencing any medical conditions of any type that I'm concerned about or anything like that. As far as what am I looking forward to when it comes to my health, I look forward to waking up every day and thanking God for the oxygen in my lungs. I'm looking forward to every day having strength in my muscles to be able to stand up straight with balance. I'm thankful for the opportunity to go on long walks every day. I'm thankful for the ability to, walk up and down steps and go and do things with my family every day. And quite frankly, I'm kind of thankful to not be in the gym for 1 to 3 hours a day anymore. Not necessarily that was a bad thing. It was a great thing for a season of life, but there's more to life than the gym. There's more to life than a number on a scale. And for me, I think that I'm most happy with the fact that I'm thrilled that I broke up with my attachment to the identity of being an incredibly healthy, fit person, as far as the reason that I allow myself to feel good about who I am and the influence I have in the world. Now, I've broken free from that. I think it's time for me probably to get a little bit more serious and bring a little bit more balance to it, but not in a way that I feel like I should, but it's something that I do feel, that it's probably right around the corner when I actually desire to do it again. And I'll do it with more balance and more equanimity. Thank you for the question, Joe. I really appreciate it. All right, John says, do you have any recommendations as to YouTube channels or other media streams that provide good advice on Kriya Yoga? Hope I spelled it correctly. And by the way, Joe McGarry says, thank you. You're welcome. So, John, I'm going to just leave you muted. Unless you want to come up on screen, feel free to give me a thumbs up if you want to come up on screen. Give me a thumbs down if you're cool to just stay there. All right, so he's coming up. All right, here we go. So tell me, where did you hear about Kriya Yoga, and what's the interest level in it?
I heard about it in your last Ask Me Anything. You mentioned it.
Okay.
And I made a note of it. And one of the issues I have in terms, I'm not very good at meditation, and so I thought maybe from the course of the conversation that happened in the last session, that maybe that would be of some assistance. So rather than just go online and look up anybody, I thought if you had any suggestions, then I'd give them more weight.
Yeah. So first and foremost, I definitely don't think that Kriya Yoga is something that I'm recommending for everyone. I just want to emphasize that. Kriya Yoga is something that I'm definitely interested in, and the reason why I'm interested in it is because it's what Yogananda, Paramahansa Yogananda, introduced to me. He speaks about Kriya Yoga in his book Autobiography of a Yogi, and he also created an organization called Self-Realization Fellowship. And quite frankly, one thing that I would tell you is, rather than sending you to YouTube videos about it, I would encourage you to learn about Kriya Yoga from the official lessons by Yogananda on the topic. Now, you may not be interested in this, but let me see if I can find, I'm just going to put on here Kriya Yoga lessons, and I'm going to put Yogananda. All right, so I will put a link to this. Actually, what I'll do is I will put it on a banner. I think I can do that. Nope, that's not what I want to do. I'm going to create a new banner, and I'll put it here, and then hit Add Banner, and there you go. So it's yogananda.org/Kriya-Yoga-lessons. Now, you pay to be a student of Yogananda. And give me 1 second. I'll be right back. You will get one of these, I think, every 2 weeks. So, and let me see how many lessons there are. There are 18. All right. So you will get one of these booklets, I think, every 2 weeks. And you're encouraged to go through it over the course of those 2 weeks. And then you'll be ready for the next one. There are 18 of these lessons that will be mailed to you. And this will walk you through step by step of a formal introduction to Kriya Yoga. Now, as a student of these lessons, you will also be given access to an app for either iPhone or iPad. I'm not sure if it's on Android or not, but I'm an Apple guy, so I I have it there. But they also have lots of other resources available. Of course, you can log in on the internet and get all the same stuff. But they have lots of videos. They have lots of guided meditations that teach all of the techniques that are in here so that you can practice them. And there's what's called energization exercises that you do every day, and they're good for practically anyone, regardless of age or physical acumen and stuff of that nature. Now, with that being said, here is where I am in these lessons, which is lesson number 4, the Hong Sau technique, the yoga science of concentration. So when I first got these lessons, I was like all in. And then I got a letter that says, hey, if you are studying other spiritual paths other than this, we recommend that you just dropped something. We recommend that you study just from one teacher, and we recommend that you study ours. But if you're interested in other paths like hypnosis or this or that or whatever, then go all in on that. But this could get way too confusing to hear all of these different teachers talk about different practices. So out of respect to Yogananda's instructions, I decided to set aside the lessons because I did not only want to learn Kriya Yoga. I was very much introduced to a lot of other people's spiritual paths, and I was interested in interviewing them, learning from their experiences, and seeing what else out there. I just wanted to see what's out there. So I set those lessons aside, and I began to find other different methods and practices. Now, with that being said, I could definitely get back into these lessons and do them. I'd probably do it if they had it on my Kindle. Quite frankly, I don't like to read on my iPad, and I don't like the the physical copies. If they just gave me a Kindle version, I'd be done with all 18 lessons. But really, truthfully, if I really wanted to do it, none of that would actually be an obstacle in my way. So I'm not completely all in on Kriya Yoga. The one thing that I will tell you is that Yogananda's teaching seems to say that Kriya Yoga is the one path, because I think there are 7 different paths of yoga, or is there 8? I'm pretty sure there are 7 different paths of yoga, and Raha Yoga is one of them, and Kriya Yoga is a version of Raha Yoga, and which basically just means royal yoga, and it's the royal path. And it's supposedly the fastest way to what's called God realization or self-realization. The only thing is, though, is I've come across Mooji, and you've probably also heard me talk about Mooji, haven't you?
I have not, no.
All right, so let me see if I can just go and find Mooji real fast. And I absolutely love Mooji as well. So I'm just going to take that away, and I will just put this here. There you go. Mooji, MOOJI.org. And Mooji just cuts through everything. And he's like, listen, if you want to be self-actualized, if you want to have God realization, if you want to find your true self, if you want to put an end to your ego, it all just happens through self-inquiry. If you could just sit from the seat of awareness, because we all are, there is no getting to something. It's just the realization of it. So if you could go any number of paths. That's the thing that I've discovered, is there's an infinite number of paths that will ultimately lead where all of us will get back to this God realization or self-realization, or whatever the case, whatever you want to call it. We're all going to get there some way, somehow. The question is how fast do you want to get there? And, what path resonates with you? Which path is interesting? What calls out to you? And listen to other people's experiences and their journeys, and do what you're doing, which is, hey, tell me a little bit more about this, a little bit more about that, a little bit more about this, and find the ones that work for you, but find one and choose it. And then you have to decide for yourself, which I've learned is, okay, now I feel like I'm very confident that I understand a direct path to completely ending my ego persona. And my question currently is twofold. Number one, is that what I want right now? And that's my ego speaking. And I can tell you right now, my ego says no. But even if the answer were yes, what does that look like in this physical space? Does that mean that I dissolve into non-physical and that this world becomes an illusion, and that, you know, my wife and my kids are just a part of a dream that I'm having? Which, you know, so there are questions that, you know, for me, I'm still working out and I'm investigating other people's explanations of their experiences. Now, with that being said, do I believe that Mooji is an enlightened, self-actualized person? I do. And I have immense respect for Mooji. And yet, here he is still in the physical world. So he's serving and supporting and encouraging me, much in the way that I do for others. All right, so I love that. The only thing is that Mooji, and he still goes by the name Mooji, and Mooji has a persona, and one must have some level of ego and persona to interact and interface in the physical world. He's still here. And as far as I know, he still has family as well. But he's not attached to that persona. And at some levels, I'm not fully attached to the persona Cliff Ravenscraft, but I will admit that there's a lot more that I'm still attached to than that I could be rid of if I chose to be rid of it, if that makes sense.
It does. It does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, I will look at both of those. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. All right, let me look into the comments here, see if other questions have come in. Nope, so far nothing. I'll go ahead and take you back down, but if you have another question, John, feel free to get my attention and we'll bring you back up. I do have in the chat on Clubhouse, Dr. Cynthia says, I love what you're doing. I teach others how to live by a never give up mentality. Mindset is the onset to all things you will ever be able to achieve in life. Personal quote. Dr. Cynthia says, as a person who builds mindsets, who would you say is your targeted audience? What niche? And Dr. Cynthia says, yes, life itself is the blessing. Okay, so the question that I have is, as a person who builds mindsets, who would you say your targeted audience is? What niche? So my target audience are divine spiritual beings who believe that they are limited humans. That's my incredibly limited targeted niche. So I'd love to just help anybody who is stuck with a belief system, a pattern of thinking, a pattern of emotional states, and a pattern of behaviors or any mixture of of those things that are keeping them from creating an experience of life that they feel called to live. Now, quite frankly, up until recently, a majority of my audience have not known me as somebody who is so interested in the spiritual awakening, self-actualization or self-realization side of things. So my mindset niche audience prior to that has been primarily online business owners, people who are looking to be an entrepreneur, leaving a soul-sucking day job to find work and create a business that they love. And I still do that, and it's still a very valuable and profitable niche. But that is not my limit of who I work with. It's never been my limit of who I work with, but it has been the profitable niche that I focused on for products and services up until recently. And I only say that because the fact is that I haven't found any profitable products or services for the expanded spiritual side of things. I have no idea whatsoever if or when or how this side of things would ever generate profit. So until somehow that's all figured out some way, some shape, some shape, or form. I will continue to be a source of support and encouragement to people on building their personal and professional dreams and helping them achieve the things that have financial returns on investment, and offer my paid coaching products and services and workshops and all those other things. I will say that there, from my ministry upbringing, there seems to be this idea that, I shouldn't be quote unquote charging people for a deeper understanding on how they can be connected to God, their source, their higher self, or whatever. I don't necessarily know that I'm super tied to that belief system anymore, but at the same time, here I am today showing up for free and not really worried too much about, well, I'm not worried at all about anything, but not too concerned about how this is all going to play out. All I know is that if you were to ask me, if I didn't have to earn any income and all of my financial needs were just met either by the providence of God, or I just had a windfall of cash, or I win the lottery, or whatever the case may be, what would I do with my life and who would I focus on serving? I would literally show up right here and do this for 2 to 4 or 6 or 8 or 10 hours a day, probably 5 to 7 days a week. And this is who I am. This is what I love. So that's my answer to all of that. And then Dr. Cynthia Simmons says, would love to do a show with you speaking on this. Awesome. Well, feel free to join me right now, Dr. Cynthia. You could do it right here, right now, and ask me anything, and we can chat and we can talk. You can join me at mindsetanswerman.com/join. In fact, anybody can do this if you want to. Let me just hit add here, mindsetanswerman.com/join. And I will even type that into the chat on Clubhouse. No time like the present. So mindsetanswerman.com/join. With that being said, I do not have any questions in the chat. So make sure if you want to engage with me, go ahead and put your question in the comment section if you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube. Those will come right in and I'll answer them. You can raise your hand on Clubhouse, or you can go to mindsetanswerman.com/join and join me in studio. With that being said, I'm going to sit in silence until the next question comes in. All right, the next question has come in from Tom. And Tom asked, do you still have a podcast course available? I loved what you did with that a few years ago. Tom, thank you so much. Great to have you here. And the answer to the question is no, I do not have a podcast course today. In November 2017, I shut down 100% of all of my income streams related to podcasting, simply due to the fact that my email was flooded every day with about 10 hours worth of work replying to people's emails, such as, can you tell me how to get rid of this buzzing noise out of the audio recording I just did? Hey, Adobe Audition changed the thing. Can you tell me where I can find that thing for your Adobe Audition secret sauce so I can set that up again? Hey, Cliff, I just bought a brand new piece of equipment. I still have all the other equipment I purchased from you years ago. Can you please tell me how or what cable I need? And I just had endless of those, and I could hire somebody to answer those questions for me, but it just wasn't what I wanted to do with my life. So I just decided to shut it all down, and I decided to focus on Mindset Answer Man instead. By the way, just a moment ago, I saw Michael pop in. So Michael, if you're out there, I would love for you to join. I saw you enter the studio for just a moment. If you'd like to come back, feel free to do so. But I appreciate that, Tom. But I do not have those today. Awesome. All right. If anybody else has a question, feel free to post that in the chat. Or you can join me live. Oh, here comes Dr. Cynthia Simmons. So, Dr. Cynthia, how are you?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. How are you?
Good. I'm doing great. How are you?
I have never been better. It gets better every single minute of the day.
Absolutely. I have a personal thing that I do every single morning when I get up. Um, in October of 2009, it was actually October 10th, doctors gave me 6 months to live. And so every morning when I get up, I slip my feet into my house shoes the same exact way I took them off the night when I, you know, slipped into bed. And my exact words, I look up and I say, thank you for giving me another opportunity to get right today, whatever I failed to get right yesterday. And that's why I said in the chat, life itself is the blessing. And you can put no value. There is no price tag that you can put on. People are so focused on getting rich and getting wealthy and having money. But sometimes, at least for me, we don't face life until we face death.
Hmm. I like that. And I love the fact that you're still here. How long ago was that they told you that?
So that was October 10th of 2009. And my exact reply to the doctor. So he's sitting, he comes in the room and I notice a very different look on his face that day because I was in there for some results that came back from some CAT scans. And he walks in very solemnly and looks at me and sits down, puts his hands on my knees, and then looks up and says, "It's not good. You have multi-vital organ involvement with very poor prognosis. At best," that was his words, "at best, 6 months." And I smiled at him and I took his hands off my knees. I put my hands on his knees and I said, "Dude, you do me a favor. You be the doctor and let God be the timekeeper." I said, I
Nice.
could walk out of this office and get hit by a car. And it changed my life that day. My entire life changed. And you can see in that little picture that I have there, I'm holding up a book, Purposely Unemployable, I Won't Fire Me. Les Brown wrote the foreword to it. I was fired from 2 jobs because of cancer.
Hmm.
And that's when I went on this mission to let people know that they have a purpose here. Doctors ask me all the time, how have you done it? And that's why I believe that mindset is the onset to all things you will ever achieve in life. It really, as a man thinketh, so is he.
Yep.
And when the brain is talking, the body is listening. So that's why I teach, preach, talk, and walk a never give up mentality.
I love that. I love it. So, what are you doing in the world today?
So I am an author. I am a speaker. I do coaching and courses. I received an honorary doctorate from Cornerstone Christian University for my works in helping others overcome life tragedies and find their life purposes. And so it really truly is about what you're saying here to people, mindset and finding purpose in life. Because I just believe that everything that has life, from a blade of grass to a squirrel to an oak leaf on a tree, everything that has life has purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And so the purpose for us is to find out what's the purpose.
I love it. Well, is there anything that I could do to be of support or encouragement to you?
Well, I just love what you're doing. And so I seen you on Clubhouse and I was like, oh my goodness, wait, what? And whenever I see somebody that is in that realm, in that arena of mindset and helping others in that arena, I just love to connect with people like that. And so I was just curious, to listen and hear and find out, who are you reaching out to? And you've answered that question because, people say all the time, oh, everybody, oh, anybody. Well, no, because everybody and anybody doesn't want to hear the message.
Yeah. No, yeah. So, yeah. So real quickly before we move on, and when I say move on, I'm looking for folks who are looking to ask some questions, because I do want to be here to be of support and encouragement to folks. That's what I'm devoting this time to. But if you wouldn't mind, feel free to please say the name of your book again, and also if you want to share your website for anybody who wants to check out what it is that you've got going on.
So the book is Purposely Unemployable. I Won't Fire Me.
All right. And what about your website?
So that is the nevergiveupguru.com, thecancerbiz.com. They're all kind of one and the same.
All right. So I'm going to see if I can get this to pull up here. The nevergiveupguru.com. And of course, that did forward to another URL.
The Cancer Biz.
So I'm just going to create a banner here and just put that in. And there you go. Thecancerbiz, biz.com, for anybody who is interested. If they want to follow you, I encourage them to do that if what you've got going on in the world is resonating with them. So feel free to do that. I'll ask you one more time. If you have any question for me, feel free to ask me anything, Dr. Cynthia. Otherwise, I'll put you back down into the studio and I'll wait for the next question to come through.
Absolutely. I'm good. Thank you so much for your time, for allowing me to grace your stage.
Thank you so much for participating, and I am thrilled for your journey, and I love the fact that you're out there telling people about the power of the mind and what it can do in your health prognoses. So thank you so much for the work that you do.
Thank you.
Awesome. Love it. I never know what's going to happen in these live streams when I host them. Sometimes I get in here and I wonder, is anybody even going to show up today? And then, is anybody going to ask a question today? And, it always is just what it is. I just follow my heart and I show up. I make myself available. With that being said, I currently have no questions to answer. So with that, just want to let you know that, number one, if you want to, you can do what John or Cynthia has done, which is join me either on video or just by audio only, by simply going to mindsetanswerman.com/join. Again, that's mindsetanswerman.com/join. Of course, if you're not wanting to come up on stage, you can just, if you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube, you simply post your question in the comments and they will come right through and I will see them and I will answer them. And with that being said, because I am here to answer questions and be of support and encouragement, I'm going to wait for the next question to come through or the next person to join me here on stage. And with that, I'll play a little music in the background until that happens. righty, we have another question coming in from Tom. Let me pull this up here. So Tom asked the question, what is a good technique for overcoming hesitancy or even a little anxiety about building a new venture, such as starting a micro business? Well, Tom, I'll give you a bunch of techniques. Let me just pull out my little card file here, and I will pull up my 10-step formula for how to achieve any goal. And of course, the achievement of any goal would mean that you would need to overcome whatever hesitancy that you may have. And chances are, if you are experiencing hesitancy in something that you want to create, such as starting a micro business, your hesitancy might come from the missing element of one of these 10 steps. So step number 1, my recommendation is know exactly what it is that you want. Have a very clear picture of what you want. Now, Tom, if you want, you can come and join me on stage and I could ask you these questions in real time, but it's not required. But if you wanted to, you could do that at mindsetanswerman.com/join. But I will ask you this question. It's just, the thing is I'm going to ask this question. You're going to hear this question about 15 to 20 seconds later, and then I'll see your answer. That's the only reason I suggest the potential of real time. But anyway, the first question I have for you is, do you know with clarity exactly what micro business you want to start? Yes, and if you would write it as, yes, I know clearly exactly what I want to start. So that's the first question for you. Do you know what you want? And I'm just going to give him just a few moments to figure out that. And of course, John, let's see here. That was from Tom. Okay, great. He says yes, clearly. He knows clearly what it is, exactly what he wants to start. So that's wonderful. Now that we know for a fact that John knows clearly exactly what he wants to create as a micro business, his question is how can I overcome the hesitancy? So my next step for you, step number 2 in the 10-step formula for how to achieve any goal, know why you must have it. Now, it's one thing to know what you want. And once you know what you want and you have that level of clarity that you have, if you find yourself saying, well, it'd be really nice to have this, I'd really like to have that. Chances are, if that's the level of desire that you have, you're probably facing hesitancy here. So, we got Tom. So, Tom, let's bring Tom up here. Tom, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
I hear you perfect, my friend. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, this is a first for me. I'm surprised how easily that was accomplished. My goodness.
Yeah,
that's not bad for a 74-year-old man, you know.
Hey, you did awesome. So let me ask you this. Do you know why you absolutely must have this micro business?
Well, the micro business is starting a service to help senior citizens tell their story and me record it in an audio format. And it's because through the podcasts that I do, especially with older people, it's become very clear to me how important it is for us to have at least an hour of us telling our own story in our own voice that we can pass on to our family and our descendants. And it just means these podcasts that I'm doing that are going public means so much to people that I've become aware that having this legacy gift could be really valuable to people, not as a public podcast, but as a audio file that they can put in their legacy box. And that's what, so I think I may answer the question. It's because I've seen how much this product, this service means to older people. Does that make sense?
Yep. So my question for you is, have you already created a version of this for someone?
I have, just as a test. I
Yep.
didn't charge them for it.
That's perfectly fine. And did it have an incredibly profound impact?
Yes, he was so happy to have the CD and the USB drive and the emailed file that he could share with family and friends and put in with his will, you know.
Yeah. So my question is there do you know why you must have this? Not that because what I'm hearing from you is like, oh, I could see how this would be very nice to offer. This is something that could really benefit some people. It'd be kind of nice to have it. But do you know why this must become reality for you?
I I have to be honest with you and with myself, and I don't have a clear answer to that, why it must be.
Okay, so right here in step 2 of the 10, you have found what's causing your hesitancy. So
Okay.
your hesitancy is simply coming from the fact that there's not enough reason for you to overcome all of the effort, all of the time, all of the energy that will be required for you to bring this micro business into fruition. Because you are I'm certain you're aware of the amount of time, effort, and energy, and all of the hurdles that have to be overcome, and all of the resistance to creating this, and is it going to be profitable? I mean, you recognize that. I
Hmm.
mean, I know why the hesitancy is there, but the reason why you are allowing yourself to hesitate is because this is not a must for you. It'd be really nice to have, and I
Hmm.
think it would be valuable. But quite frankly, at this point, if you're hesitating, you probably have this feeling like, this is cool. This would be a valuable product. I could see myself potentially doing it. I probably won't. Maybe I will. I'm not quite sure. I'm hesitating. Maybe somebody else will create it. I don't know. I think it would be good. And you're getting stuck in that cycle in your head, correct?
Correct. Yeah, I've moved along a ways though. I've actually named it, and I've actually set up a web page for it, and I'm putting videos on the web page that will describe what the service is, and I've decided to launch it in December. But then, like you said, it's like, but I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I'll think, but should I be spending my time on something else? You
Mm-hmm.
know.
Well, let me ask you this. What is the answer to that question?
I think that I am really good at interviewing people, at especially older people, and bringing out their story. And when I think about maybe what I'm meant to do with these last few years, of my life, it's to have these in-depth, meaningful conversations with people that has a great impact on them as we're doing it, but then also that then they can share, that can be passed down, that 50 years from now their great grandchildren can enjoy. And I don't know, I've not come up with anything better for me to do with my time and energy. So
Okay.
I think this seems like this is it.
So the question that kind of wakes you up in the middle of the night and gives you a little anxiety, is this the right thing I should be doing? And right now, you've just answered that question. Right now, this is the best thing I can think of in this moment.
Hmm.
Okay. So I have
That's
some
right.
other questions for you. Where are you in a situation of finances? Are you required to generate money from the work that
Well,
you do?
no, that's a good point. No, not at all. And that's why I guess I called it a micro business. It's taking this hobby that I have of podcasting and using it for something with a greater good. But also, I do want to be compensated for the time, for the hours that I spend on it. But it's not a. I don't. I have to be really honest. I do not need the money.
Okay, great. No worries. So financially, you're fine. If this
Yes.
thing were not profitable, that's not where the anxiety is. The anxiety, it comes. Were you on here when I talked to John earlier about choosing the right path?
No. No.
Okay. So the idea of, is this the right thing to focus on? And my philosophy is that there is no such thing as the right thing you should do next. There's an infinite number of things that you could do if you desired to do them, especially given the fact that financially you're taken care of. So its question is I've got time, effort, and energy. If you ask yourself, is this the right thing to do? That question alone can produce a lot of anxiety because it presumes that there is a right thing and a wrong thing. And if you believe that there is a right thing or a wrong thing, there is a very high likelihood that you may one day decide this was not the right thing. And that could be painful psychologically. Would you agree?
Yes.
So one thing that I would encourage you to consider is maybe there is no such thing as the right thing or wrong thing, just anything that you desire to do. Does that resonate with you at all?
It does.
And you could, if you wanted to, perhaps put as much time, effort, and energy into building this micro business. You could invest in it for the next 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years, whatever. And at any point that it's like not worth it to you anymore and you found something else that you would prefer more to do with your time, effort, and energy than this, you could just shift focus.
I agree. And I would have learned some techniques and how to use technology and all this kind of stuff. I would have learned some things along the way that would benefit me in some other area of my life. That's one of the lessons I've learned throughout my life. I've never wasted my time on anything because even if that didn't work out, I learned something from it that helps with something else.
Absolutely. So then the question just becomes, if you want to know why you're hesitating on this, it could be the distinction of the fact that is this the right thing or the wrong thing? And hopefully this could help alleviate completely all of that anxiety and all of that tension. Then it just becomes, is this something that I want? Is this something I definitely want to wake up in the morning and put consistent time, effort, and energy into making this a reality? And if that's still not a very clear answer for you, what I would encourage you to do is to have conversations with people about it, have prayer and meditation about it, journal about it if that's something that you do. But the one thing I would encourage you is, as you're talking to people about this and people ask you probing questions and why would you do that and why would you spend all your time this or whatever, find out how you're feeling, your energy. What's your emotional state in connection to the idea of defending this micro business?
Okay.
So this is how you can discover just how much of your heart is in this path.
I like that. Right.
And but that's right here. Step number 2 in the process of how to achieve any goal is where you're finding your hesitancy. It's just you're not sure if it's what you want. And we've even gotten even further to understand that one of the reasons why you're not sure if what you want is because prior to this conversation, you weren't sure if it was the right thing or if there was something better that you should do.
That's it. Right. Yeah, because I have the time and the money to do pretty much whatever I want to do. So it's like, okay, let's do something.
Yep.
Maybe. I think this is it. So.
Yeah, and you weren't here for the conversation with John earlier, but the replay will be available if you ever want to go back and listen to it. But one of the things I would encourage you to ask is, why do I feel this need to do something? And there's nothing wrong with wanting to do something, but you may want to question, is that feeling and that nudge to do something because, well, there's something inside of me I want to do? Or have I been programmed throughout my entire lifetime that I'm only valuable if I'm actually doing something productive for society and all of this other stuff? And you may find yourself putting a lot of time, effort, and energy into something just to alleviate the feeling of unproductivity that comes from nothing more than a belief that you bought into, that people told you that this is what you should be doing. You should always be doing something to add to society. Why else should you be wasting the breath and oxygen in the air?
That is so good. I mean, that could be a big part of why I can't just do like some of friends my age do, and they just decide to study ancient history or something. The rest of I feel like I need to be out there talking with people, doing something, and having something to show for it. And I like that. I'd have to say I do like that. So.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that. The question is it's something I need to or I desire to. And what I've discovered is that there is a difference in the level of freedom that you experience in life when you're doing something because you want to and you desire to, or you need to.
Okay. Great.
Does that help?
It helps a lot. Thank you. I'm so glad I stumbled across your StreamYard.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, real quickly, are you interested in hearing the remaining steps of the 10-step formula for how to achieve any goal?
I am. My wife might be coming and calling me to dinner here in a moment or two, but
I'll share them real quickly. Matter of fact, let me see if I can go to Banner real quick. Do I still have this? Yeah, check this out. Let's see here. So I don't want that. We'll go here. Okay, so step number 1, you have to believe it's possible. Step number 2, you have to write it down. Actually, this is an old formula. Okay, so step number 2, that's actually not the one. Let me go to the actual 10-step formula. Okay, here's the actual 10-step formula. I'm pulling this from an old presentation that I did. Step number 1, you have to know exactly what it is that you want. We've already covered that. The next one is step 2 is here. You have to know why you want what you want. And you have to actually, matter of fact, it says here, your why will be the fuel that you need to get to your destination. When there's a big enough why, your how will always reveal itself. Step number 3, you have to believe that it's possible. If you have any doubt about whether or not this is possible, that's where hesitation is going to come in. So there you go. That's step number 3. Step number 4, this is where a lot of people fail. You must make a decision. You must decide right now that you must achieve this goal. The word decide, by the way, the root word CID in Latin is to kill. It's the same as pesticide and homicide. And so you must decide, which means you are literally killing in your mind any other outcome than the successful launch of this micro business. All right. The next step that you will do is you will write it down. In fact, you're 42% more likely to achieve your goals simply by writing them down. This is from a study from Dr. Gail Matthews. Step number 6, you must place your goals where you can see them. Have them visually reminded to you on a daily basis. For example, if your micro business are these things, I would put a thumb drive and I'd actually get a CD, and I would have a printing company print the image of one of your customers on the CD and and get a bunch of copies of that, and put a copy where you brush your teeth, and put a copy in your car or wherever. Put these things around so that you can actually see visual representations of this. The next one is tell others about your goals. You'd be shocked at how many times the next step of how to take it to the next level will come out of a result of people saying, hey, what are you doing these days? Oh, I'm doing this. Oh, really? Have you ever thought about this? You should talk to so-and-so. So telling people your goals is going to help you get further along. Step number 8, take massive action now. In fact, don't compare your massive action to someone else's. In fact, what action can you take within the next 24 hours to get even one step closer to your goal? Then what can you do within the next week? Write that down. What can you do within the next 30 days? What can you do to get you closer to that goal within the next 24 hours, the next week, the next 30 days, the next 90 days, the next 6 months, the next year? Write down as many bullet point answers to all of those questions, and then start taking massive action. The next step is to evaluate your results. Did this get me closer? Do I want to continue this action? Did it not work out the way that I anticipated or the way they told me it would? Then after you've evaluated your results and you haven't achieved your goal, change your approach as often as necessary. And then if you want a bonus, find a role model who's already doing what you are wanting to do, and learn from them and their experience. There you go.
Super. Great. Yeah, the massive action. I set up the webpage, your story in yourvoice.com, and once a month, I'm doing a little 2 to 3 minute video that I'm putting on there that hopefully a client, a customer would be able to just go through that, make them feel comfortable with working with me. So what you've told me is super helpful. I really appreciate it so much.
What is the name of your website again?
Your Story in Your Voice. And it's a web page that is on my website, Bluegrass Region Voices and Views, but it has its own domain, Your Story in Your Voice.com.
Yeah, let me just pull it up here and make sure that it's loading.
Great.
It is taking a few moments to load. It might be on a shared hosting platform.
It's on Bluehost.
Yeah, that. By the way, if you decide to get very serious with this, you may want to look into what's called a VPS, virtual private server, instead of shared hosting on Bluehost. So, for example, I've typed in this and I'm still waiting about maybe 30 to 60 seconds now, and it's still not listed, which by the way means that Google will not rank you anywhere like within the first 50 pages of results. And even still right now, it's still not loaded yet. So that is one thing that I would highly encourage you to do.
Wow, that's too bad.
Yep. Don't worry. It's a big thing that a lot of people do. But here's what I would encourage.
For some reason, I think I had a phone call. Are you still there?
I'm still here, but
I can't hear you. I don't know why.
No worries. So I'm gonna mute him on that end, but Tom will eventually come back and listen to the replay. But I'm gonna let people know. Go to yourstoryinyourvoice.com at some point in the future. His website will probably get working again at some point in the future, but right now Bluehost is down, or that server is down. But anyway, I just told them to write that URL down, and I'm sure at some point within the next day, week, or month that site will load again.
Okay, great. Does it need a www in front of the Your Story?
It shouldn't, but we can try that. So there's the yourstoryinyourvoice.com, and it doesn't pull up. And let me get my mouse off of one of these iPads here, and we'll go to www. And that is not pulling up either. No.
Okay, well, that's too bad. Thank you.
Hey, just want you to know, I spent the first 3 to 5 years of my online business generating hundreds of thousands of dollars a year on a Bluehost site that was dealing with that issue. But I would encourage you to move off of Bluehost and over to something that's going to get you there.
Great.
And by the way, Michael Jones is saying it did come up for him, and it took about 6 seconds for him. So it is coming up, but now I'm running into a DNS issue because what you've got is a URL forwarder, and my DNS has probably cached the fact that it's not going over. But yeah, there you go. Was this helpful to you, Tom?
Very, very helpful. Like I said, it's my first time, by the way, on StreamYard. I'm very glad I ran into what you're doing here. I sure benefited years ago from what you were doing with the podcasting community, and I appreciate you very much.
Oh, it is my honor. I am thrilled that you joined me here. I'm going to be doing tons more of these Ask Me Anything sessions. I love to just show up and be of support and encouragement to anybody about any area of life. So I appreciate you joining.
Now, you still live in Northern Kentucky, right?
I do.
Yeah,
just
I live
outside of Cincinnati.
I'm in Lexington, Kentucky.
Oh, yeah. So you're just, just over an hour away.
Right. All right.
I'll wave at you next time I go through town.
Yeah, please do. Please do. All right. I'm going to go have dinner. Thank you.
Have a great dinner. Talk to you soon.
Thanks.
Bye. All right. Let's move along here. And we still have 21 minutes. Taking a look here. If anybody has any questions, let me just tell you real quickly how this works. Pull this down and put this back up. So you can post your comment or question in the comment section if you're on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube. If you're not, just go to any of those /Cliff Ravenscraft on Facebook, YouTube, or LinkedIn, and you will find me. And you can type in a question, any question you want. We're here for 20 minutes and 40 seconds longer. And if we were to build some momentum, then I will continue on. But it looks to me like I'm wearing everybody down, so no worries. I have a question that came in here, and Michael Jones, let's see here. Michael Jones says, "Who are you and why are you here?" So that answer for me today is I will simply explain this as, who am I? I am a divine spiritual being. I am a vibrational entity here having a human experience. I am a spark image of God's consciousness focused in human form, currently hovering between full attachment and some attachment and occasionally no attachment to my ego, personality, and beliefs that I am this human physical being known as Cliff Ravenscraft that many of you have come to know over the years. But who am I? I am a divine spiritual being having a human experience and enjoying every moment of it. And also, why am I here? Well, it depends. Ask me in any given moment in time, and that may change. But why am I here? I would say the overall is to experience life. I'm here to experience life, to create, to co-create. I'm here to experience the essence of who I am in the drama of realization of who I am. So there's a lot more that I could say about that, but for me, who am I? I'm a divine spiritual being here having a human experience. Some people know me as Cliff Ravenscraft. I had to identify with that at various different levels throughout the days and weeks and years. And I am here currently to be of support and encouragement to anyone and everyone who is suffering in their life from any thoughts, beliefs, emotional states, or behaviors that are keeping them from experiencing the fullest expression of who they feel called to be in this world. I'm here I'm here in this choose your own adventure game called life, and I'm playing around. If you will, I see life as an incredible adventure. You know, they talk about this metaverse thing. And by the way, this is the last question I have so far. So if anybody has a question, feel free. Please submit me another question. That's the whole reason I'm here, is to answer questions. But I'll riff on this for just a little bit. Oh, and you know what? I do have another question from John that I see that I skipped earlier. So John, I see that question and I'll come back to it. And it might even take up the remaining 15 minutes after I finish this. But now I forget, what was I saying? Oh, they talked about the metaverse, you know, and I'm not sure if you guys ever read the book Ready Player One or Ready Player Two. They're incredibly powerful books by Ernest Cline, super sci-fi. There's a movie they created out of the first one. But it's this whole idea that you could live in this virtual world, right? And the idea is that in this story, it's this post-apocalyptic kind of future. Everybody is kind of like the earth is, you know, unbearable to go outside. So everybody just quote unquote plugs into the internet and they put on these VR gear that allows you to experience this virtual world, this world where it's seemingly unlimited, and that you could go to anything your mind imagines. You could go here and experience that. And depending on how sophisticated you are, you could actually have these headsets that go on and it feels like complete full immersion, so such that it's like a full on, like, it's not like you're looking through little lenses, but you're literally feels like you're in this world. And if you go all out, you could actually put yourself into a bodysuit. And in this bodysuit, it's got all of these sensors that cause you to have all of the feelings of the interacting into this virtual world, such that if you were in the virtual world and there was a water bottle, you could literally feel like you were actually holding this water bottle. And imagine doing that for the very first time. And it's like, oh my gosh, wow, I actually feel the weight of the water and the gravity in this box. This is amazing. I mean, I can feel it. Oh my, the temperature. The water is actually colder than the rest of the box. This is incredible. Wow. Do you guys not understand that that's exactly what we are? We are literally that in this world. We have the best VR experience that has ever been created. That is what we are. That's how I feel about it. So that's my answer to who are you and why are you here? That's fun. All right. Going back to John. John says, what 5 to 10 books would you recommend to help people widen their spiritual horizons? So first, I will say that I would never give a blanket list for just anyone to broaden their spiritual horizons. I think it depends. I would recommend a different set of 5 to 10 books for somebody who's coming out of fundamentalist evangelical Christianity. I would recommend a completely different set of books for somebody who grew up in India and was brought up through Hinduism. I would give a completely different set of books from somebody who has never had any religious experience whatsoever. I would give a different set of books to somebody who is coming from a complete agnostic or atheist worldview. So I would give a different set of books for every individualized person. Now, what I'm happy to answer for you are some books that have been incredibly powerful for me. And given that I came from a highly Protestant, evangelical, fundamentalist Christian background, here are the books that got me started. I started with Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. This book is incredibly powerful, and for me, it was important that I could take the principles of that book and throw all of the philosophy and all of the New Age woo-woo out the window, because for me back then, it was important that I did that, because I was conditioned to stay away from all the New Age woo-woo. Now, and then what I did is I took the principles in that book and the practical steps articulated in that book, and I began to see the results that came from it. Now, over time, I was introduced to other books. The next book that was powerful for me was Psycho-Cybernetics by Dr. Maxwell Maltz. This book introduced me to the idea of what's called the self-image, and it also helped me understand the mechanism and the role that my subconscious mind plays in my life. It also helped me understand at a much deeper understanding what autosuggestion is. And it was a very basic introduction into hypnosis or hypnotherapy and different levels of consciousness so that I could actually change what I believe at a subconscious level. So those are 2 books that got me started. There are tons of other books along the way, but I'm trying to think about really profound and pivotal books. Then I would say another book that was very helpful. This is all personal development and professional development kind of books. But the next book was T. Harv Eker's book titled Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. Secrets of the Millionaire Mind by T. Harv, H-A-R-V, Eker, E-K-E-R. Now, that book helped me understand just how limited my beliefs were around the idea of money and wealth. So that was incredibly profound for me. Another book related to that was a book called Thou Shall Prosper by Rabbi Daniel Lapin. Admittedly, I've never read past chapter 2 in this book, ever. But I've read the introduction and Wealth Commandment number 1 and Wealth Commandment number 2. I've read the introduction in those first 2 chapters, if you will, about 5 different times. And the introduction in chapter 1 is all I would need to have the profound impact. And so I've read it several times. It was a pivotal thing for me. And again, it helped me understand this. Now, I could go in much more depth there, but I will tell you that, and these are not in the order I was introduced to these books, but if I were to introduce them to myself in the way that I think they would be most helpful to me today, the next book I would read would be the Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. The great news is that the audiobook of that book is only, I think it's only 2.5 hours. So anybody could listen to that before they went to bed tonight. It's just, I mean, it's shorter than a podcast episode from Cliff Ravenscraft, for goodness sake. So the Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. Incredibly powerful. Then after that book, the next book that I would recommend to myself, given my own experience, is I would recommend Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. And this is incredibly profound, especially when it starts talking about who is that voice in your head, this nuisance of a roommate that lives with you at all times and will just not shut up with all its bullcrap that it keeps telling you all day, every day. It's like you would never put up with that. If you lived in an apartment and this person was your roommate, you would have kicked them out long ago. But there's this voice in your head that is more annoying than the most nuisance of a roommate. And who is that voice? And by the way, who's aware of that voice? So that is a book that I would recommend. And then I would also, if you read that, I would then recommend The Surrender Experiment, also by Michael Singer. And the Surrender Experiment is Michael Singer's journey of just absolutely giving up on this overachieving lifestyle and miraculously being led step by step, divinely guided to way more success than most people experience. It's an incredibly powerful book, and I loved it. And it spoke to me from a professional business kind of guy side of things. From there, where would I go? From there, I think from there, I think those are enough. And from there, what I will tell you is if you make it through all of those books, I will make a suggestion to you of what will happen. As you're going through those books, you will hear the authors of those books tell you things in the book which will spark an interest, and you'll go search for something on YouTube, or you'll go search for something here, or you'll go do this or do that. And this is called synchronicity. And you may or may not be aware of it, although I'm going to kind of let you in on it. Your higher self, or your connection with God, that voice within, your inner being, is literally leading you and guiding you to all of these next materials. That's why I don't necessarily recommend that you follow what I just put out. It's great. It's a great recommended reading list. But and maybe for you, you asking the question is maybe you hearing your inner being is me giving you this list. It could be, could not, it might not be. But feel free to take any one of these books in any order and just start there, whatever feels right to you. And if none of them feel right, set them all to the side. You never have to read any of them. Here's what I will tell you. If you were to resonate with any number of these books, you will be led and guided to all of the next materials. And it's not just books. When I started this, it was during the pandemic, or right after the pandemic, they opened up movie theaters. There was this biopic called Tesla. And I went to the movies to see this biopic about Nikola Tesla. And I came home and instantly it's like an overwhelming, insatiable desire to instantly look to see if I could find an autobiography of Nikola Tesla. And I found the book, My Inventions. And then all of a sudden, as I'm reading that book, I hear this voice within say, Cliff, if you want to understand why Nikola Tesla was a genius and was able to tap into things, I'm telling you, it's not because he was special. He just tapped into something that's inside of you and everyone else. And so I began to study a bunch of other people's autobiographies. And what I recognize is that everyone who has been labeled a genius all had this history of studying mystics and mystical experiences. And they all found this infinite intelligence, this universal consciousness, this kingdom within themselves, this self-realization, this etheric, metaphysical world. Every genius who has ever invented anything at a consistent, ongoing level, they all were aware of these things. I've read it in all of their autobiographies. It's there. It's in plain sight. And so then that's when, for me, I was then led to a YouTube video. And I was watching all these YouTube videos. And then the next recommended YouTube video was a short little thing that says, Steve Jobs' favorite book. And I'm like, well, I love Steve Jobs. And I believe, by the way, I do believe that Steve Jobs was a genius. And I believe he created things that people said were impossible. And he had that vision in his head and he brought them into reality. And, people always talked about Steve and his reality distortion field, which I'm thrilled that he had it, because the reality before Steve Jobs was not as fun as the reality that we have because of Steve Jobs. So what I loved about that is and I had already read I read both different biographies, the Walter Isaacson and plus the other guy's biography of Steve Jobs. What I didn't pick up on when I read it, though, was a couple of things that were clued in and were even in his Stanford 2005 commencement address. And that was that Steve Jobs in his commencement address talked about going to the Hare Krishna for meals every week. It's just a little drop in there. I wouldn't have picked it up before, except for the fact that this little video, and it was like a 3-minute video, Steve Jobs' favorite book, Autobiography of a Yogi. And here's what that little video said. And I would not have seen this video had I not been researching Nikola Tesla stuff on YouTube. But God, the universe, saw fit to recommend this next in my thing. It's a synchronicity. It was just put there for me to capture my attention next. So this video says, Steve Jobs' favorite book. When he was 16 years old, he was introduced to Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. At the age of 17, he decides to make a pilgrimage to India to find in search of a guru. There he finds a guru, has this experience, and while in India, he reads the book a second time. After finishing the second book the second time and before returning to America, he made a commitment that he would read the book Autobiography of a Yogi once a year, every year for the rest of his life. By the way, Steve Jobs, at one point, as the CEO of Apple, made it a requirement that every employee of Apple Computer must be given a copy of Autobiography of a Yogi. It was a requirement of their employment that they be given a copy. Also, at the funeral, the memorial service for Steve Jobs knew that he was dying. He made sure that he gave all of his special friends a parting gift. Now, Steve Jobs was a billionaire. He could have given anything. But what did Steve Jobs give to his closest friends who attended his memorial service? A beautifully ornate hand-carved box that he had custom made for the purpose with velvet lining inside, and when it opened up, there was a hardbound copy of Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. And this video said one last thing. Steve Jobs' wife said that there was only one book on Steve's iPad 2 on the bookshelf in the Apple Books app on his iPad. There was only one book on that bookshelf, and it was Autobiography of a Yogi by Paramahansa Yogananda. So I read I watched this video. I did some research. I don't just read something and just assume it's true. So I went and started researching. I actually found employees who stated that, yes, they were given a copy of this. I found the guy who started Salesforce or whatever, Mark Benioff or whatever his name is. He confirmed that he attended the memorial service and received one of those wooden boxes. So I actually confirmed all of these things that were said about this book and Steve Jobs. At that point, I'm like, okay, I'm reading this book. If it was good enough for all of these, I want to read this book. And to say that book rocked my world is a far cry understatement. Now, why didn't I mention that book in that list of books that I just mentioned earlier? Because since then, I've recommended this book to 100 people. Do you know how many people out of the 100 have read the book? 3. That's it. 3 out of the 100. The other 97 bought the book and said, Cliff, I don't understand how you even got through the first chapter. This is terrible. It just doesn't resonate with them. And so I don't necessarily recommend that book for anyone because I've seen it just fall flat for far too many people. But for me, I spent probably 2 to 3 hours a day every day reading that book until I was finished with it. And then I went on to a ton of other Yogananda material. But that's my answer to that question. So John, thank you for that. And let's see here. Is there anything up? Yeah, I think it's we're all caught up. And with that, it is 5:30. I've been here for I decided to start this live stream at 3:30. I figured I'd go for 2 hours. Quite frankly, I wish there were more questions. I wish there were more people that would have joined and all this other stuff, but I'm delighted and thrilled and filled with gratitude, and I'm completely content with those of you who have joined today. And who knows who's going to watch this replay? Well, there's one person who would know, but only if you did this. If you're watching this later, would you send me an email? My email address, let me see if I can pull up my banner here. I should create these banners ahead of time. Cliff@cliffravenscraft.com. I'll hit add banner. There you go. Cliff@cliffravenscraft.com. That's my email address. I would love to hear from you. If you watched this live, John, you don't have to do this. You just sent me a beautiful, lovely email earlier from the last stream, and I replied to you today. So we're all good, and I feel your love, and I appreciate it. But if anyone else has been watching this live today, or if you're watching the replay of this, I would love to hear if this was of support or encouragement to you. Would you like more of this content? Would you like to be available or be notified in advance via email when I do more of these? These are the kinds of things that I would love to do. By the way, did you hate it? Did you think it was absolutely terrible? Are you absolutely disgusted by some of the things that I said in this? Feel free to email me. I'd love to hear those too. Seriously. I'm not necessarily suggesting to you guys that I will determine how frequently or how often I show up based upon your feedback. I would imagine that the more feedback I get, the more likely I'll do these more frequently, even if it means, an average of 3 to 7 to 10 or 15 people throughout the live stream and an engagement of, very few questions and stuff like it. None of that stuff matters to me. Just want to know, was this valuable? And if I hear yes from enough people, it just continues to inspire me more. It confirms that nudging and prompting in my heart to just schedule these and do them. But if you don't let me know, I won't know. Chances are I'm still feeling a very strong prompting to get this going. And I may develop a routine schedule where you can come to expect me at certain days and certain times. Not ready to go there yet because I'm getting ready to go out of town in 2 weeks, and I got some other things going on with my daughter going off to college, but maybe in September through the end of the year, I might choose some certain days and certain times, and you just come and show up, all that other stuff. But one thing to let me know, cliff@cliffravenscraft.com. It's not important. If you don't do it, no big deal. But if you wanted to know what would let me know that you appreciate this, just a quick little email. All right. Many blessings to you all. Oh, hey, you know what? Let me do this real fast. I've got this whole thing going on here. So do this. Let me throw this off to the side. Oh, I got to get rid of that banner for my email. And check this out. Of course, when you are joining me live during these live streams, you can always join me on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube. It'll be /Cliff Ravenscraft on all 3 platforms. If you join me in a future session, maybe you weren't here for this live session today, or maybe you were very much lurking in the background during this live session today, I want to let you know you can post your comment or your question in the comments on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, and I will answer any question. Seriously, any question, any topic, whether it's personal, professional, career, business, or spiritual, whatever you want, ask your questions. Also, if you want to join me live in studio, mindsetanswerman.com/join. That link will only work when I'm live. Now, you could probably go to that link afterwards during the replay, and you'll find that you'll just be sitting there forever and nobody's going to be there. It's okay. But anyway, if I'm live, you can come to mindsetanswerman.com/join, and you'll be able to join via video and or audio only. Also, if you're interested on more of the spiritual side of things, I have a community for people who are going through a spiritual awakening or those who are going through a deconstruction journey. You can learn more at awakening.cliffravenscraft.com. Again, that's awakening.cliffravenscraft.com, and you will get email notifications about more of these live streams. Of course, I have a podcast where I talk about all these spiritual things and put a lot of content in there. It's over at encouragingothersthroughchrist.com. I also have my main podcast. It's The Cliff Ravenscraft Show, also known as Mindset Answer Man, and it is all more of the practical personal development side of things that I do. It's over at thecliffravenscraftshow.com. And if you are a full-time self-employed business owner and you want to do life with other people who are serving the world at the highest level, who are looking for support and encouragement on an ongoing basis where everybody is absolutely committed to the success of every other small business owner in this group, we all come together to share our experience, our education, our areas of expertise, our skills, our talents, our abilities, our resources. We are there to serve one another as a small business community. The Next Level Mastermind, you can learn more about it over at nextlevelmastermind.info. And then, of course, if you would like to work with me one-on-one in a private conversation, maybe you've been watching, maybe you've been lurking, you're like, listen, there ain't no way I'm going to ask you my questions in such a public forum. I get it. I'm available for private, one-on-one, 90-minute coaching calls. Let's go deep. Email me, cliff@cliffravenscraft.com. Until next time, my friends, I encourage you to take everything you do to the next level.
Mindset Answer Man.